Hello, welcome everyone back to another episode of the Virtual Ninja Show. My name is Heike and today my guest's name is Shai. And before he introduces himself, we are going to talk about something that was just announced at Microsoft Secure. Super interesting. And if you haven't yet, check out our calendar for upcoming episodes, aka.ms/Ninja Show. So now, Shai, please introduce yourself, what you're doing, and what are we going to talk about?
Yes, thanks for having me, Aika. I'm super excited to be here. So as you already mentioned, my name is Shai. I'm actually working on a great product motions, and we'll talk about it today, XSPM, which is a huge kind of a topic in the industry. I've been working at Microsoft, very excited. I moved between some teams, starting from professional services. Today, I'm kind of being the contact point within our customer, leading that area in the field. So very happy to be here. Let's start.
Yes, that sounds super interesting, but I still don't know what we are going to talk about. So, you mentioned something, XSPM. Is this an abbreviation for something industrial termish, or is that something that we invented, or what is that about?
Yeah, the first time when I heard about it, I had the same question as well. So I was just talking a lot about security posture management, which is a huge concept in the industry. A lot of customers which I worked with them to secure their cloud environment talked about it. And then when I started discussion about the X one, right? We thought about if there's already XDR, right, an extended detect response, why not having also the posture side of the pre-attack stage of the breach. So it's all about getting more context, right? So X stands for the extendability of the security and management posture. So why not combine and bring all of those sources together to one pillar and provide it under the hood? Now, yeah, we didn't invent it for kind of the industry. It's already been there, but it's a new motion that was mentioned everywhere as kind of the most important thing to try to solve the breach before they will come to an incident. Those was started by Gartner as a new acronym in the market and was kind to be more to take the state to be more onto proactive mode than the reactive side. So we want to solve the incidents before they will become to be an incident. So it's all about that, right?
Okay, so, but we also have defender vulnerability management, and then we have so many things. So how is that different? And does it mean it is now a new portal and you need to install something new, or like what is it behind the hood?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Usually I get this the most from my customers. First of all, like you said, it's a combination of all of this to be in a kind of the same umbrella, right? You probably need to have coverage within your vulnerability management. If it's MDVM, like you said, Microsoft Defender Vulnerability Management, that's we can use in XSPM as a source to give you that coverage to see and examine the vulnerability aspect within your state, right? This is one
Mhm.
area. If you have kind of a security posture solution in place, we will be able to give you that as part of our portion. You need to think about it like a solution would give you an initiative across the hood. Initiative could be something which related to endpoint security, for example, ransomware, cloud security. Now, MDVM, like you said, vulnerability management, is one aspect of the things. You can have it, but you need to have more than that, right? You need also to have identity coverage. You need to have also cloud security coverage. The more than you have, it's about us to provide you the exposure view as a one solution at all. Now, with regards to where it's going to be placed, yes, it's going to be in the SEC portal, Microsoft Security Portal. We'll have a menu which named as Microsoft Security Exposure, and beneath you will have all the things which I mentioned. Part of them will be the initiative themselves, which highlights based on the solution, the security solution that you are having, will give you the coverage and the perspective about your state and what you need to do.
So it means you're not installing something and collecting your information yourself, but you rather provide kind of, I call them connectors, to
Exactly.
different existing solutions, which you bring under one view and in one place.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the way to look and describe it. And the best to describe and to think about it is if you think about the approach about you having as a Microsoft solution, a first party was the easy part for us because we can then integrate it with the one which already known, such as MDVM, Microsoft Defender for Endpoint, Defender for Identity, a lot of Defender stacks. But we also know that some of the customer have a different solution security stacks in place, and we will provide them connectivity to those third party as well. For example, we will be able to connect customers to third party solution for vulnerability assessment because it's all about exposure. We know to provide a full kind of context within the security of extended posture management, you need to be able to rely on sources, and the sources could be coming from everywhere. So yes, one portion and one capability building a graph with all of this context is to be rely on what you just said,
Mhm.
connectors that are coming across those areas.
And I mean, I'm working at Microsoft for a little while now, and usually when we when we bring new products, and especially when it is around connectors and things, so there is usually um, the most important connectors are there, and then of course, you know, as we move forward, more and more connectors will be added. Do you know? I don't know if it's too many, but do you know what are, or like, some examples of the most important connectors besides, of course, the Microsoft world, but like third-party connectors that we have already?
Yeah, so honestly, I'm working closely with customers, already part of this journey to try to help them to improve their security stacks with regards to, improve their posture area. And the first thing that I was asked is to prioritize which one are the most kind to be, prioritized. And I was surprised because I get noticed, but most of my design partners, they're using their CMDB metadata, which is not with Microsoft tool. That was targeted by ServiceNow as the first connector. And then I got those insights to our team, and we are working to be able to provide these connectors. The meaning of that, because we have one portion in the solution which named as critical asset management, and we are relying to provide you what are the crown jewels in your org. You can think about crown jewels such as criticality asset, and we found that some of this metadata in some of the customers is not placed in their security solution. They have a different solution, CMDB, which maintain all of this data, the business criticality, and we first targeted to be something that we want to provide them to allow us to give them more context about what is critical, how we can prioritize based on that context. The other was also required for vulnerability management. We already targeted Qualys and Rapid7 as a vulnerability third-party solution because we get kind of requests from customers. We had more than that, but to just give you as an
Mhm.
example, and we try to first tackle those.
You mentioned CMDB for a little while. What does it mean?
Yeah, so usually most of the customer are maintaining the customer the criticality metadata or the meta kind of
Oh,
they're
okay.
building kind of a database, an internal database to maintain a project responsibility. You can think about it like if I'm a project management in such org, I need the responsibilities. It could be some kind of billing that you want to relate to my org, which project I'm related to, which kind of resources, and all of this data it not exist in the cloud or either by, in the device level. So they
Hmm.
maintain it in a different database. It could be other solution, right? But this data is crucial to prioritize because if you have like an issue or kind, I will say, a critical or an incident in an application which is critical to the business, this is mapped there because everyone which is creating or I even saw and talked with one of my customer. Every time they requested to create an environment, they asking for a criteria field. It's the, like they filling a form. What's the server need to be? Which application is related to? Who is the owner of that server? Things like that. All of these metadata are placed in this CMDB. So it's like a business logical of contained metadata inside the org.
Thank you. Another question that comes up is, so we talked about connectors. And I mean, another solution that is very famous for connectors is a SIEM solution. So for instance, in our case, it's Microsoft Sentinel. So can
Mhm.
you leverage these connections? I mean, let's imagine there is already something, I don't know if maybe it's not the right information because the SIEM system is for a different purpose. So what, how is that relationship?
Yeah, this is again a great, I think, a great question because some of the kind of thinking about SIM is about incidents, for example. And if you think about SOC analysts and the people which actually looking at the Sentinel portion, they try to get and to analyze and maybe investigate those incidents. We are coming in the stage of the pre-attack, right? The pre-breach. So we want the customer try to configure and strengthen their configuration in the environment before it will become to an incident.
That's
But it's
true, but
not,
can you
yeah,
leverage the connector?
exactly.
Can you get the data?
Exactly. So we already have thoughts like what you said about taking the terminology which Sentinel already used to use those third party. And I know there is a motion currently that working to try to build on the top of that, but we're going to use it in a different approach, right? Sentinel is taking more of the raw data. We will
Yeah.
need it more for kind of the context of, but yes, but I think the aspect will be something we can do as a better together style, like you always say.
Yes. Yeah, it's just like, more connectors. I don't know if I mean,
For sure.
it's just something to build, but
Yeah,
why not build on
on the same
great things of
experience.
others, right? So, Shai, of course, whilst you are developing a product, there's always a lot of engagement with our design partners. What was a general feedback that you already got, also to, of course, improve the product in a way it is ready for more people?
Definitely. I was even surprised when we started the journey. Some of the CISOs which we met in person, either here and kind of trying to see what could be the benefit of having, one more kind of posture tool in place to be able. So we actually got numerous feedback after working, found those kind of crown jewels. We have an aspect when we always try to find what is critical, right, to the org. So we already found and getting a benefits of getting the value, hearing that feedback from customer tooling. Wow, we don't even aware about this potential crown jewel which already exposed to internet facing and things like that. But it's not just that. You also found things like tampering protection on the endpoint was disabling. And those kind of feedback make us understand it's not that they didn't have the tools in place to provide them this capability. It's just we put everything under the same console of right of the same console, and that was take them to a new approach and new investment. I even heard from some of my customers things like, "We really love it because now you make us to be more focused on the area, and we can provide to the C level more about what we are doing from the security." Because sometimes it's really tough for the team to show how they progressed up within some initiative in ransomware, for example. If I'm going to ask organization how good you are to be that, so those kind of feedback we had, and I think it's make us more think about the investment, how we can leverage that to be more having more threat articles and things like more correlation with the Microsoft Defender. Threat intelligence, for example, was one of the feedback that we get and we added to the product. So I can, that's the most things that I have in my head right now. And that's something I think we are very proud of. Wow.
So you mentioned it, right? So there is multiple dashboards or tools that show customers certain, I call them scores, maybe posture scores.
Yeah.
But either they have to go from one to the other because it's not centralized. And is this also a different persona? Or, like, I mean, of course, it depends on the size of the company. But from your experience, is posture management more of the IT security admin side of the house?
Yeah, that's a very good question. When I started my journey with most of my design partners, I worked with two personas. One was the decision maker, and there was also the practitioner. So combine those two, we wanted to be able to provide the decision maker like what are the states and to allow them to be able to focus on. So usually I work with some of the ones that are reporting directly to the CISO, and the other to do some kind of mobilization within the team. We need to provide the practitioners, the methodology of mobilize those aspects. So I've usually worked with both. Most of them are, some of them on one end, the decision makers. We can take it and leverage those motions, but we usually involve more team in those activities, to be able to provide the context within what's need to be done, how to mobilize the team itself. So it could be either by cloud security architects, and mostly the persona which could have, first of all, access, right? We need to have someone with a role that could be access to the 365 portal. And if we want to do more than that, of course, you need to have more kind of flexibility within the roles inside of it. So I think that's usually how we see it within the product.
Okay. So, Shai, I think now I really want to see it because it will give me more clarity on probably still a couple of questions that are in my head. Um, let's jump into the demo.
Yeah, so we are here in the 365 portal. And as I mentioned, everything will be combined under the exposure management menu. So when we talked, Taika, earlier about the initiative and the attack surface, exposure insights, all of these are combined here. And we even talked about the data connectors. So I will be able to provide a glimpse about it and what it currently does. Looking at the first dashboard, which is the overview under exposure management, it's all about the key initiatives. So we can definitely look here to see how good I am with respect to ransomware protection, endpoint security, business email compromise, cloud security, or even identity. I have more than that, but that's how we usually summarize the key context of the key initiative. Now, each one of those initiatives combined with a set of metrics, each one of those metrics are related to some recommendation that the customer can look and improve based on his kind of motions that he want to invest. So let's assume I'm a customer and I really want to focus about ransomware protection. That's the journey I wanted to start focus with. So if I'm clicking on that initiative, it will raise up a ransomware protection and tell me how good or better it relate to my score. I can set my target score. We at Microsoft always encourage customer to be the highest they can, but customer can either set his target score if you want to define it as a different KPI. And beside of that, we have the related metrics that could impact this score and combine it to be a calculation under this specific initiative. So if I look, for example, things like virtual machine without backup enabled, for example, this is subset of the metrics. If I want to see all of them, I can just click on the button and click Open Initiative Page. And if I click on that page, I have the subset of the overview. I can look on all of those metrics, which are the metrics which are related. Some of them already be target set, mean I already solved them out, so they will not come to be an issue. But others, as we can see here, are affecting my score. So I can decide which one I want to focus at. Some of them can be risk accepted, mean I know this is an issue, but I'm not going to tackle it because I'm using a different product, for example. Others could be things that needs an attention, and everything could be decided against by the C-level perspective, either by the persona which could say, look, it's a known issue, but I could define it later on or something else.
I was just about to ask Shai. I was thinking, like, why wouldn't someone have 100%? Like, right now you have 58. You can add your target. Oh, let's say 72. Like, how do you come up with these numbers? Like, how do you say this is my target score that I want? You have a target score of 99, and we all know you are never 100% protected. Attackers move and change and things. I get this, but in general, why wouldn't you say, ta-da, I want everywhere a coverage,
Yeah.
at least the number?
Yes, so in exposure, like you said, it's a different approach. We try to be in 0%, right? So it's like lowest the number, the lowest exposure you have, the more secure you are. But if we're talking about largest numbers, such as devices, for example, if we are working in a large enterprise environment, sometimes to be 100% is even not possible, right? So if you think about 60K devices, for example, I talked with my customer earlier today, and we have a gap with 1,000 devices. And 1,000 devices against 60K, it's not a huge amount, but this is coming from acquisition. We try to map it out, but the attacker, they will not consider that, right? They will still always try to find where are the easy getting entry point. So what we try to do here, either by providing this kind of asset list, for example, if we look at the affected items, so this list will be populated based on the metadata, for example, that we try to populate based on the source that is coming. So I want to make sure, for example, that those asset lists are not crown jewel. And why I'm saying that? So there is a different approach between saying, look, I know these devices need to take care of by solving these incidents, for example, but from prioritization perspective, if it's a critical, right, this is a different approach. So that's what we try to combine when we say a score. And I was surprised because most of the persona that I'm working with have a KPI. They need to report that, right? They even build a dashboard from themselves to measure their scores. I'm actually engaged with some personas within my customers. They really need to report about the progress, how good they are improving over time. So this is all about the score. And now you said, now sometimes you want to see and know how good or bad I am against the other. Is 60 is bad or not? So usually I'm not sticking specifically to the number. We can set it as a target, for example, to be 90, but I want to see a trend. I'm more concerned about the trend of improving. If you are enforcing policy, for example, you will probably increase for sure, right? It's not like fixing vulnerability in one devices. We are not talking about solving a specific issue here. We're talking about looking at the overall posture. So for example, here, if we talked about this example, and I don't even like think in my head to choose that, but look about backup. Okay, backup, it's not like a concern, but if you don't have a backup solution to your virtual environment in the cloud, for example, or machines, it's a problem specifically for ransomware because the attacker could leverage. But again, it's not about the numbers. So probably you want to be compliant. The number is not matter. It will increase your number if you will get in compliance state, right? So it's more about to understand the motion and what's important to business to be and to adapt. And we know there's campaigns. Most of the customer investing even to improve the ransomware portion. Other could be investing cloud. That's okay, but let's put a target to make sure we are getting to that based on the methodology that the organization could leverage between the mechanism of what we call a trending kind of strength, right? So if you implement things not by solving them separately, it's much better. So that's what I see from my kind of point of view around it. And this is just an example. We can take others. Scoring, it's a mechanism. It could be an amazing tool, but you need to take it to the area where it combines to the ones which really help you to prioritize against the methodology that you already have in your business. I get feedback sometimes from customers about what was it against enabling conditional access, for example, signing, which one of the famous with regards to identity. They told me it will take us time. And then we
Yeah.
try to understand why and things like that. In the end, they report me, you caused us to implement that. We are very happy, but it was kind of a journey. We need to go to the identity team. It's not always them, right? How to convince them. We need to check the policy, to do some kind of terminology, what if, and things like that. But in the end, it's worth the investment. Is not just the proof and the compliant. They can even go to the CISO. Look, from that portion, MFA, which is one of the multi-factor authentication, we know as a terminology to be in place, it can reduce the attack surface for 90% and more. So it's the number itself, but not just it.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier as well, and I think this is super important to clarify, is the prioritization, right? It is not just a list. And maybe you can explain, you are doing something in the system, in the product to prioritize, but I guess also customers can add what is important to them so you can do the better. How is that working?
Yeah, so first, amazing question. So it's a combination of what we call the area, which we choose to name it as what we call here, if you can look here, as a critical asset management, right? With the symbol of the crown jewel. I'm just mark it up. So this is the crown. So what is all about? We try to highlight and try to help you to be able to prioritize based on your crown jewels. Now it's like an acronym. What is crown jewel? Is that mean that it's important? Yes. If we know that in your kind of environment you have an internet facing critical device, it's something we want you to be, taking care of it immediately. Try to solve it now. It's not like saying that the other things are not important, right? We are talking about security, but this could put your environment in a risk right now and can create incident that later on you need to be on the reactive. You want to solve it now. So if you think about that, for example, or either devices which are critical with highly exposed, those are a pattern when we know there is a potential kind of exposure which combined to be an asset which is critical. How we know Microsoft what is critical? What we have created here is a mechanism to be able to show the customer what we choose as Microsoft to be a crown jewel. So we can see things that probably customers said, oh, now I understand. Domain controllers for sure is something I want you to think about as crown jewels. Azure AD Connect, ADCS, for example, we talk about domain admin workstation and vice versa. I don't want to conclude every role here, but we totally can understand those for sure, as Microsoft know, and probably the customers could be something to say, look, it's acceptable. If I want to see those lists, by the way, we also got the feedback and we showed this. So we just added an option to see the asset list within. So if I look at the global administration, we provide that list. But let's say we didn't found something that you know is critical, Ike, and we, Microsoft, don't know that it's critical for you. We have provided you mechanism to define it by yourself. So you can today create a classification rule, and specifically this let's say test domain. I already created that name, but for example, it could be DC, let's say. And this could be based, for example, on a device name. Why I say name? Naming convention. You have settings like to be starting with DC, could be anything related to be a domain controller. So this is one kind of option. What about network? I have one customer that asked me, look, I have a DMZ network. You don't know it's critical, but it's very critical to me. So fine, you can go to here and create what we call based on IP, for example, range. It could be public IP. It could be either by other range that you select to be an option, and device name. You can be set it by identity or cloud resource. So whatever you think you want to mark something as critical, we provide you the mechanism. If you still want to do it separately, we have added this to be an option within devices. So if I go here, for example, to device inventory, so if I mark one of those devices, you can see here, we have added this functionality as here to set criticality.
Okay.
So this is something nice because I said this is the same experience which customer already know about it, right? They know how to use device inventory. We just added them this portion to allow us to help them to attack paths, for example, and maps.
That is great. So what I really like is, of course, we have our logic and our intelligence, but because the question comes all times from customers, I want to also be part of decisions that you make, right? So I want to tell you what is important and what is not important. That's awesome. And I like that it's not just devices, it's identities and it's other entities that someone might have in the network. So, but now how are you connecting the dots? Like, how is now something exposed, and how do you fix it? Like, what's the
Yeah, that's a great topic also to cover because I think we have raised that when you're talking about crown jewel, for example, what we just want to see is sometimes the correlation. What could be the impact, right? I have an entity or an asset which is exposed. So we can see here something we named as attack surface map, right? Those are all the crown jewels, which are devices, identities, and cloud. But let's assume I have one device that I want to see its correlation and we know it's exposed and currently open to the internet. So what I can do, I can go into the map itself. We have under attack surface the attack surface map. I can search for the device name within the map, and this device could be the device which I know probably based on the pattern which I have created. And if I click on that device, I can choose show it in the map itself. So let's assume that I was looking about these devices, which is a domain controller. And now I want to see what is the potential kind of to access to this domain controller. So I can see here, the name is pretty simple, DC domain controller test. And I have all the data, which explain me what is the kind of asset, what it's doing, if it's have its vulnerabilities, finding as well, nothing special here, but I can see the potential to get into these devices could be some account which marked as crown jewels, mean they have criticality. And we're talking about identities. Now, those identities are a variety of huge lists that we can see here. Doesn't matter what are the names, for example. What you can see, two of them are very high, right? So very high mean there are potential to be, if some kind of privilege of those identity will be exploited by the attacker, it could get and authenticate to be and to get access to this domain controller. But it's just the end of the story. Not, because this attacker could do lateral movement and expand it out to more areas when we can see more plus sign. But I will close the kind of explanation here because we understand some potential kind of pet could exploit and to be a potential to multiple area. Now it's a lot of connectivity here on that specific map, but more than say to that, every line in the thought I want to think about it is a potential kind of permissions. What could be the potential? Which kind of permission, how we can authenticate to. And again, we try to provide a connectivity between the crown jewels and to show you what the exposure risk and the potential risk beneath that. Already customers work with that found this as a game changer because we not just tell them, look, the crown jewel is a potential to be with that specific exposure. It could also affect those area which is connected to. With that being said, Ike, I think we covered the map portion area. We also have kind of attack paths in place when we are showing what are already opened and put your environment in risk right now. So we can see more kind of things such as internet exposed VM. Let me try to expand it a little bit.
Before you expand it, Shai, so the map shows me how everything is connected to each other, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And the attack path means there was an attack, or this could be a path for a potential attack.
This could be a potential attack in place that already put your environment in risks. For example, internet-facing VM with remote code execution that has connection to Key Vault or SQL or things like that.
Well, okay.
So that means it's already a pattern of a combination between multiple kind of paths. If I just show an example, it could involve some of those devices that are part of it. And this could be something that involves specific machines that could have access. And we give you what the recommendation you need to take care to solve this out immediately. Things like solve first the internet facing, implement the network security groups. Of course, you need to solve the vulnerability and close the management port, whatever. If it's SQL, it's easy. If it's RDP, whatever it's come with. Those putting your environment in currently list. So you need to think about attack path, something that we already found as a potential kind of attack, like you said, path in place. And the map would provide you more flexibility of navigate to see more kind of connection in the dots with all the potential metadata that we have with those sources.
Okay, Shai, all of this is super interesting and I have way more questions. So I'm deciding now that we will do a part 2 of that episode so we can then actually go deeper into all the things that we haven't discussed. So you all out there, come back when we are going to do the second part of this exposure management episode. For now, thank you so much, Shai, for walking me through and making me so curious about all these great things. And everyone, I hope you will be there for part 2. Thanks so much.